Are you studying to take your CDL test at Prime Inc. or another facility and you want to ace your pre-trip? Well, then this video is for you. My name is Danny Crisp and I've helped nearly 350 students pass their CDL test, and every single one of them that used this system here passed their pre-trip on the very first try with perfect scores. That's right, 100% success, 100% correct. If it worked for them, it can work for you. Remember, when applying to Prime, if you found these videos helpful, please make certain to use my name and code as your driver referral in the application box. Let's do this together. And if you'd like a copy of my study guide and phrasing to ace this thing for sure, reach out in the comments below. Now, stay tuned, let's figure out how to ace this pre-trip. All right, we can now begin our pre-trip vehicle inspection. We're going to start with our in-cab, beginning with our 4-stage air brake test. Now, before we do our air brake test, there's a couple things we need to do. First, we need to turn our truck on. So if you need to put your code in, you'll put that on, and then turn your truck to the on position. At that point, you're also going to need to push in your valves. Now, if you get a copy of my study guide, you're going to be able to see in parentheses it says engine on, valves in. Again, if you'd like a copy of that, reach out in the comments below and I'll get it over to you. Now, after we have those things done, we can get right into our air brake test. My air brake test has 4 stages. First is going to be the raise to governor cutoff test. I'm going to build my pressure until the governor cuts off, which should come on between 120 and 140 psi. Now, at this point, I'm going to gently rev my engine to get myself up to 12 to 13 RPMs here. And what I'm doing now is listening for that release of that air pressure. And there we have it. My governor cut off at 125 psi. So now we can go on to the next stage, but before we do that, we need to do another couple things. Engine off, electric back on, and then if your truck is equipped with hill assist, make sure you turn that off so we have ample air going to the trailer and the truck, not just the truck itself. So at this point, I can get into my second stage. The second stage of my air brake test is the applied pressure test. I'm going to fully depress my service brake, wait until my gauges stabilize, and when they do, I'm going to make sure I do not lose more than 4 psi in 60 seconds while listening for leaks. Now, at that point, I'll stand up completely on the pedal, watch the gauge stabilize, and then say to that examiner, my gauges have stabilized. Will you please start my 60 seconds? 60 seconds eventually goes by. He says, that's time. You take your foot off and you say, I did not lose more than 4 psi in 60 seconds and I did not hear any leaks. Now, that third test is going to be my warning light and buzzer test. I'm going to continuously pump down on my brake until both my warning light and buzzer come on, which should occur at or before 55 psi. Now, at this point, I'm going to continuously pump down on my brake and watch. My warning light and buzzer came on at 60 psi. My fourth test is going to be my tractor and trailer valve deployment test. I'm going to continually pump down my brakes until both my tractor and trailer valves deploy, which should occur between 20 and 45 psi. And then at this point again, I continuously pump and I watch my valves. I need to visually confirm that both those valves deploy. There's one. There's two. Both of my valves deployed at 25 psi. So that concludes my air brake test. I'm now ready to move on to my 4 safety. The first of that 4 safety is going to be my indicators. I'll turn my key to the off position and back on. Point out both my ABS lights on the truck and trailer have come on and gone off, indicating there's no problem with my ABS system. And then I'll turn my truck back to the on position. Here I can continue with my indicators. Left signal. Right signal, high beams, my 4-way flashers, and my def gauge is showing the correct amount of def. There I'll continue on to my fire extinguishers, probably mounted, secured, and fully charged. Then our next safety is going to be our 3 red reflective triangles underneath the bunk. Next is going to be our spare electrical fuses kept behind this panel in front of the passenger seat here. And after we've completed our 4 safety, we can move on to our 4 functions. Now, our 4 functions is going to go ahead and start with our windows and mirrors, all properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, adjusted to the driver, and free of any obstructions. Next is going to be our wipers and blades. Pressing the toggle, we will see that our blades are properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken. They are operating smoothly, and those blades are in good condition. Next, we're going to move on to our heat and defrost. We can see right here, we turn to this icon, turn it all the way up, and we need to feel that defrost and feel that heat and tell that examiner they are both working correctly. And that final function is going to be our horns, city, and highway, the fun one. So let's move into our tug test and our service brake test. Okay, so our tug tests are very simple. You're going to see right here, gently press on the brake, cycle it into drive, push in one of your valves, it does not matter which one, accelerate gently, and when you feel that tug, denote to the examiner, brakes are holding, that tug is good. Then we push in the opposite valve and pull out the other, leaving it in gear, accelerate gently again, and there's another tug. So we know both of those are working. And finally, we do that service brake test. We get our truck up to 5 miles per hour and then gently brake to make sure the truck does not pull to the left or to the right. So there it is, guys. That's our in-cab. That's that 4-4-4-2 style. If you build this thing brick by brick, you should have it in your brain in no time. All right, so the next section here we're going to have is the driver's side door and fuel area. This has 4 different components. We're going to start first with our mirror and traffic monitoring devices, properly mounted, secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, and clean. Next, we're going to come down here for our battery and box, properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken. Connections are tight and not worn. There's no corrosion, and the box is latched. Next, we're going to move over here to our DEF and fuel tank and lines, all properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken. Lines, like all lines, properly mounted and secured at both ends, no abrasions, bulges, or cuts, and no leaks. Additionally, no leaks from the cap. Caps are on tight, and no leaks from underneath as well. That 4th component is going to be back here, and it's a pretty big one. Now we're doing a flatbed trailer. It's a little bit different if you're doing a reefer or a box trailer. We have to make sure that we're mentioning the frame and cross members for the truck and for the trailer, all properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, no missing cross members. We also have to make sure that if we are with a reefer unit, we talk about the sliding rear tandems, or if this is a flatbed that has a sliding axle, we talk about that. Also being properly mounted, secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, and pin is in the fully locked position and in good condition. And we also need to talk about this floor of the trailer here, the deck on a flatbed or the floor of a boxed trailer. We need to say properly mounted, secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, and it's in good condition. So that's our driver's side door and fuel area. Let's move on to the coupling section. First, you're going to have your air lines, properly mounted, secured at both ends, no abrasions, bulges, or cuts, not leaking. Next, you're going to have your electric line, properly mounted, secured at both ends, no abrasions, bulges, or cuts, no exposed wires. And then you're going to have your glad hands, properly mounted, secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, in good condition for those seals, and they are not leaking. All right, our next 3 is going to be right down here. First, we're going to have our trailer apron, properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken. Right underneath that, pressing against it, is our skid plate, properly mounted, secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, and fully lubricated. And as we can see, there is no visible gap between that apron and that skid plate. Next 3 is going to be right here. This is our platform, properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken. Attached to that is our sliding 5th wheel locking pin and airline, all properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken. The locking pin is in the fully locked position, and that airline, like all of our airlines, properly mounted and secured at both ends, no abrasions, bulges, or cuts, and not leaking. That 3rd one there is going to be the mounting bolts, all properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, and no bolts are missing. So that's our 3 3s. From there we can move into our 2 2s. Safety latch right here, properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, and in the fully locked position. Coming back here, we have our landing gear and clearance, properly mounted, secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, in the fully raised position with the handle secure, and an adequate amount of clearance that when we turn, it does not make contact with that mud flap there. Lastly, we're going to have our kingpin, properly mounted, secured back there, not cracked, bent, or broken, and our locking jaws, properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, and and fully locked around the kingpin. So guys, that's our coupling, 3 3s, 2 2s. Let's go ahead and move on to the engine compartment. So as we're standing here in front of the truck with the examiner, we're going to say there are no leaks of any kind underneath the vehicle and there are no leans. From there, we'll move over to the passenger side. From here, we're going to want to do our passenger side general hoses, all properly mounted, secured at all ends, no abrasions, bulges, or cuts, and no leaks of any kind, no fluid, and no air. From there, we'll move over to our driver's side. Watch your head here. And from the driver's side, we will do our driver's side general hoses, all properly mounted and secured on all ends, no abrasions, bulges, or cuts, and no leaks of any kind, no fluid, and no air. From there, we move into our 3 fluids. Here we have our coolant, properly mounted, secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, filled to manufacturer specifications and not leaking. Right down here, we have our power steering fluid reservoir, properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, filled to manufacturer specification and not leaking. And our third fluid is going to be that oil, and right here we can see it's filled to manufacturer specification and checked with a dipstick. Next is going to be our 2 2s, starting with our steering gearbox and hoses. Properly mounted, secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, not leaking, and like all of our hoses, properly mounted, secured at both ends, no abrasions, bulges, or cuts, and not leaking. Next, we're going to go into our steering linkage. That's going to be our pitman arm, our drag link, and our tie rod down here, all properly mounted, secured at all ends, not cracked, bent, or broken, and not missing any castle nuts or cotter pins. Now that second 2 is going to be our braking components. First is going to be our brake lines, properly mounted, secured at both ends, no abrasions, bulges, or cuts, not leaking. And now the remaining braking components, we need to assert that there are no contaminants of any kind, oil or debris. That's going to include those brake pads, brake rudders, any of that extra stuff, no contaminants. After that, we'll move into those 2 different 3s. That first one is going to be about our suspension. First, we're going to have our spring mounts, properly mounted, secured at both ends, not cracked, bent, or broken. Then we're going to have our leaf springs, properly mounted, secured at both ends, not cracked, bent, or broken, and not shifted. And then our shock absorber here, properly mounted, secured at both ends, not cracked, bent, or broken, and not leaking. And that final 3 is going to be about this wheel. Now our steer tire is properly mounted and secured, no abrasions, bulges, or cuts to the tread or the sidewall. It has been filled to manufacturer specifications and checked with an air gauge. It is also no less than 4/32 of an inch, checked with a depth gauge. Next is going to be this rim, properly mounted, secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, no unauthorized welds. All the holes are round and they are unworn. And finally, we have our lugs, properly mounted, secured, not cracked, bent, or broken. None are missing. There are no rust trails or powder residue, no shiny studs indicate that it's loose, and there are no cracks around the bolt holes. So that completes our engine compartment. From there, we can move on to the lights. You're checking 4 things in 4 ways, and then you're doing your 5x5s. Now those 4 things are going to be lights, lenses, reflectors, and reflective tape. And we're going to be checking them all to make sure they're properly mounted, secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, clean and illuminated, and amber to the front and sides and red to the rear. So I have 5 clearance lights, 2 headlights, and 2 runners. And we have a light here, another light here and here, reflector on the back of the headache rack, reflective tape along the rub rail here, another light here. On the back of the tractor, I have 2 lights, 2 reflectors, and reflective tape on both of my mud flaps. Continuing down the side of the trailer, I have a light here, another light here. Right here we have our ABS light and another light here. On the back of the trailer, light, 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 and reflective tape on the top and the bottom of the DOT bumper. More reflective tape here, and don't forget this little light here. Another light here, light, light, and if you forgot the back of the truck, you can do it right there. Light, light, and finally right here, a light. The next section of our lights inspection is going to be our 5 functions. at 5 locations. And this is making sure that when we put signals on inside the vehicle, we can see them outside the vehicle. So you'll say to that examiner, it's now time to begin my 5x5. I'll be checking my 5 functions: left signal, right signal, 4-way flashers, high beams, and brake lights at my 5 locations: front of the truck, both sides of the truck; back of the truck, both sides of the trailer; and the back of the trailer. Will you help me, sir or madam? And after that, they will help you administer that functions test. And that's it, guys. That's our whole inspection, all 5 different components. If you're interested in that sheet, reach out to me directly. I'll get it right over, and you can follow this exact same system we just used. Make sure to reach out with any questions. You got this, and we can help.